Well, hello, Molly Davis, and welcome to A Cup of Clarity. Thank you so much for being my guest today. I truly appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, and you're coming all the way from Alaska, as I was just mentioning a minute ago. I didn't realize it was Alaska. I thought for whatever reason it was Arizona, just because I guess they both start with A. But that's such a
Yeah,
special state that I've yet to visit. Have you always lived there, or were you
we
born
are
there?
we are literally probably the farthest we could get in the entire United States from
Yes.
right now. No, I was born in Montana, but I was raised here and have lived most of my life here. My grandpa's Alaska Native, so there was kind of a heritage thing. So that's pretty. It's a cool place to be, other than the winter,
Yes.
but
Exactly,
it's special.
exactly, but amazing to just walk out and have nature, just 360 everywhere you go, I
I am
assume.
sitting in my office. There will be a moose, a mama moose walk by. Eagles, bald eagles flew by. A caribou left an antler in my yard the other day, which the dogs liked. Anyways, it's
Of
just
course,
its own special place.
that's amazing. So I always like to start asking my guests, first question before we get into our topic of the day, which with you, it's gonna be about boundaries, so important. What is it, Molly, that you are grateful for in this day?
I just had I have adult children now, which is very, very, very fun. And one of them just had a baby. So I
How
have a
exciting!
brand new, and it's so cliche sort of, but I realize now, oh, that's why everyone says this is the best thing ever. It really is. This baby just started smiling, and when she
Oh,
smiles, you're like, ah, I could
that's
die
it.
so happily. Yeah, I'm done.
That's
Um,
it, right?
this is just what everybody said it would be, and I didn't know. But yeah,
Have you
I'm
gotten used to the grandma title yet or considering
no,
yourself that? I
no,
was gonna
that's
say that
weird.
would take me a little bit.
Yeah, that's an adjustment. I don't know if I'm still used to that. But I wore her there. They're with me at this moment, and so I actually kind of wore her in this baby wrap while I was doing some tidying to give my poor daughter just a hot second
Little
of her break.
break.
She's so devoted, and it was weird. I just felt like I was just wearing another baby not so long ago, and
Oh,
here
I
now I'm
know
wearing this.
time goes by so fast. I hear you. I mean, mine is gonna be 19 in August, already in her going into her sophomore year of college, and I swear I look back
Wow,
and it was like kindergarten graduation the other day, so I hear
exactly.
you on that.
Yeah.
So you are a clinical psychologist, you're a coach, a mentor, a teacher, many different things. But your main focus, which I love, is on boundaries. And your counseling philosophy is really was based on two ideas that people aren't broken and
Mhm.
change is possible.
Yeah.
That really resonated with me when I read that in your bio. And so I just wanted you to start there and tell us a little bit more about yourself and that philosophy.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I'm a therapist, which I love. I think it's such an honor.
Hmm.
I'm a teacher, a coach. I think all of us who love people, we
Yes.
end up, working with people in a million different ways. Um, I really take issue with what I call pathology culture, and I
Mm.
think we find it a lot in our field of psychology, but everywhere else, where we're so quick to label toxic, we're so quick
Yeah.
to label bad. And if you think about the image of broken, if I think of myself as broken, the imagery is just kind of like a plate smashed to bits.
Yeah.
There's just no hope. What it puts us in this very shame-based position, a
Mm.
fear-based position, an absolutely hopeless position. I might be able to get fixed a little bit, but it's hopeless, and I don't like that, and I really actually kind of resent it sometimes. So what I find is I feel like nature gives us a much different model, and we're nature too. So
Mm.
things in nature move towards health if we just get
Yes.
out of the way of, if we get the things out of the way. The tree, if a little tree is planted on top of a rock accidentally, we'll see those pictures that we all love where the roots, like,
Yes.
they
They
go find
find their
the.
way.
Yes. And I feel like that's us. That's a better image of us. Can we be hurt? Can we be wounded? Can we end up getting covered with the sludge of the years and all the crap that
Mm.
happens? Sure, absolutely, totally. And can we find our healing? Yes, we absolutely can. And so that's that philosophy.
Love that. And yes, and change is possible. I think a lot of times it's a matter of us looking within ourselves and saying it's time for change.
Yes.
Change is scary, but if we take that first step and at least the willingness of saying, okay, there's something here that we not broken, but we can improve, we can evolve, we can grow and step into a better, deeper version of ourselves. But taking that first step is the most important thing.
Absolutely.
So I would love to hear your definition of what a boundary is, and also your opinion or your thoughts on why it's so difficult for so many of us to set them. I'll be honest, I still have certain areas where I've gotten really good.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other areas where I'm about to say yes, and there's something in me that says, okay, take a pause.
Yeah.
Say no. But I have to work at it, I'll be honest.
Absolutely. You know, actually in my boundaries program, there are different times when half of the people in the program are counselors or psychologists or are generally helpers, healers. Yes, very, very talented, very amazing people. And this stuff is not easy. It's not easy at all. So I conceptualize boundaries. I keep it pretty simple. I think cognitive models of boundaries can be very, very helpful for some people. And if that works, great. But for those of us who are very compassionate, we're super smart. We got this. We read it. We saw it in a meme. We're like, oh, I'm going to do this. Here's a script. I'm going to do this. And what ends up happening to us is we get into the situation and there goes the boundary. Bloop, it's gone. Because on this deep level, we don't have boundaries. On this deep level, many of us who are very, very compassionate are very, whether somebody,
yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Givers.
Yes, givers, helpers. Yes, exactly. Which is, I think, a great and beautiful thing to have a generous heart and to have the capacity to sense the emotional states and moods and needs of others. I do totally think that is a gift. And without boundaries, though, it just gets us.
Yeah.
Because if I can sense that you're going to be disappointed and I can really pick up on that, and I want to give, I am not going to say no to you unless I know that it's okay. And that's, I think, what boundaries are to me, is that on a deep level, to be boundaried is to know that I know that I'm okay. And then I can help you if I want to. And I don't have to if it's not right for me, if I don't want to, or if somebody else could help you, that I can set boundaries without that guilt and that anxiety. I think of boundaries as external and internal when I teach them, but other than that, I keep it pretty simple. External is just the boundaries out here that you can see, feel, taste, touch. That's what most of us think boundaries are.
Yeah.
Oh, this interaction. I think the most important boundaries are on the inside, which is which feelings are my feelings and which ones are yours? Which thoughts are my thoughts and which thoughts are yours? What dreams are my dreams and what dreams are yours? Because if I don't have those, I'm going to get, as a giver, as a helper, I'm going to get sucked up into your life so fast. And I'm going to be helping you meet your dreams while mine are just somewhere.
That's I'll be honest, that's happened to me more than once in my life. And it's only now, as I guess I get older, wiser, and whatnot, that I've looked back and say, okay, that had to end. That was a pattern that needed to be broken, and sometimes that's why people come into our lives, is to teach us something, right? I always like to say relationships are assignments, and sometimes they're here to teach us how to finally break the pattern with boundaries. You mentioned something about feeling guilty, which I think so many of us do when we are used to saying yes, and then we have to say no because we just do if we set a boundary. And sometimes, I know for me, I've felt I've said yes when I really wanted to say no, and then felt like frustrated or resentful afterwards. So how do we work past these feelings that lack of boundaries tend to give us all these different feels?
I love that question because it's so true. It's one of those like damned if you do, damned if you don't type of a situation we compassionate people find ourselves in. So if we don't say yes, if we say no, we feel really guilty because, made them unhappy. And without boundaries, that's my fault that they're unhappy. It is my fault that they're disappointed. It's my fault they're not going to be helped. So we literally feel like we're responsible for their feelings. So now I feel guilty.
Feelings.
If we say yes when our answer is actually no, then if we say yes and end up doing the thing we didn't even want to do in the first place, because we are actually not meeting our own responsibilities. We're not taking care of ourselves in the process. So and without a really good deep sense of boundaries, we don't actually know where the responsibility lines are. So what we do is we make ourselves responsible for all of it. And it's emotionally, I don't think there's a way to feel really great emotionally about being responsible for everything. I think we get a pick. Do I want to? And that's actually what we do. Do I want to feel resentful or do I want to feel guilty? But either way, I'm just not going to feel good. No matter what.
Exhausting. No matter what, it's exhausting, right? It feels heavy sometimes.
I noticed that's actually kind of what got me into this, is because as such a passion, because I experienced it in my own life, and then as a therapist in therapy with all sorts of different people, I kept seeing, as I began seeing boundaries as this actually a deep, deep thing and not a surface level thing, I would notice that it was coming up over and over in so many people's struggles. And we were trying to attack the struggles up here. We needed to get down almost to the tectonic plates. And it just sort of, I actually started like, I need to find a book or a class or a thing that does this. I can give this to
and
people.
You created one, which is wonderful. We're going to talk about that later, because I think it's a beautiful thing that you saw a need and you said, wait a minute, this, I can just provide this service for people who need it. You mentioned something just a minute ago, and now I kind of lost my train of thought when we went elsewhere. But no, it had to do with going deeper, and I want to go deeper with that. People pleasing is really kind of right up there when it comes to boundaries. And those of us, again, that are empathetic, compassionate, want to please, but the people pleasing, as it's my understanding, goes deeper than that. A lot of times it starts in childhood. And I know you had a post in one of your Instagram posts that really talked about that as children, we grew up to be people pleaser because as children, we had to manage the emotions of the adults in our lives, mainly our parents at that time. So tell us a little bit more about this, because I think that now starts to go at a deeper level. And how can we sort of ditch that people pleasing or start to move towards resolving that?
Yeah, so it's kind of a heavy one for sure.
Sorry.
No, I'm going right through.
But I think this is an important one, because I know so many people that fall into that, just wanting to always say, please.
I'm going to say some kind of heavy things about parents, but I really want to preface that by saying very rarely is it even the parents' fault either. It's such I think when we start seeing this, I mean, with the exception of those, there are parents who've truly tried to harm their kids. That is a different thing. But in the most instances that I work with, there is that parent was a child, and that parent was a child, and that parent was a child. And it has been this repetitive cycle that just keeps getting passed down and nobody knows any better. So say that with grace, for everyone's doing their best with very limited tools. But if you think about it, when we're little, what is the thing we look at with our parents? When you think about, being a young one, we very much tend to have their faces in our mind. How are they looking at us? Is it with pleasure? Is it with displeasure? Is their mood happy? Is their mood unhappy? And what is life like if they're unhappy? And in a healthy enough environment, it's like they're unhappy or they're not pleased, but it's generally going to be okay. Excuse me. But in any sort of a not so great environment, when they're not happy, I mean, we're little and we're big. We have no power. We forget, we're like, you can't just drive and leave the house. You can't leave the house. You can't, there's no way to get out. They are literally everything to us. So I think for those of us, different personalities will react different ways.
Right.
Kind of get the genetics we got, the personality we got. But those of us who lean empathic, compassionate, those of us who lean towards that ability to really pick up on people.
Highly sensitive
Yes,
individuals.
sensitive or helpers or givers. We start learning how to watch and respond accordingly. And we actually have the capacity, because we're that generous helping nature, to help. We actually can make them feel better. Some kids can't. They have to cope different ways. Some kids just hide. Some kids rebel. Some kids do this. We're like, oh, I will. And that results in different problems, right?
Of course.
But ours is, let me help you feel better. Let me make the environment better. Let me do whatever I need to do to make you feel okay, so I'll be okay. Or, it might be, so I'll get love, so I'll feel worthy, so I'll be good, or so I'll just be safe. So everyone will be safe. And then our brain's like, oh, okay, this is the way life is. Right. So it wires it in like it's supposed to. That's what brains are supposed to do. Then we're 25 and we're doing the same thing with a partner.
With other people.
And we don't even know we're doing it, or with a boss,
exactly.
or whatever. And it's so unconscious that it's not like we think like, oh, I'm gonna, it's not manipulative. It's not intended to be. It's literally for our love, for our approval, for our worth. And we that's happening. And then that's the boundaries thing. We're like, I'm going to set this boundary script. No, you're not. Yeah. Down here, you can't. You have to keep them happy. So you'll sacrifice anything to keep them happy.
Yeah. And that's a lot for a little kid to have to deal with and maneuver, again, in a regular home, just everyday type things, and having to sort of feel like, okay, what's the pulse of mom and dad, and how do I adjust accordingly to that? And then add to that, parents that may be alcoholic, or parents that may hit the children, or parents that are continually arguing with each other, or other things that, might be really difficult and traumatic, that just raises the bar, I'm sure, even more so for us as children to want to always be hyper vigilant. Right. Yep. And so we walk around with that later on in life. Not really feeling safe, but looking for safety.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like a really, I think it loops into our survival loop of our brain, because it is love, approval, connection, safety, things we actually have to be okay as humans. And we don't have any defenses against that. You can't say no to that. And so that's why, and it's speaking of depathologizing, that's why it's so nice to learn that, I think, because we will pathologize ourselves. We're like, oh, I'm codependent, I'm people pleasing, I'm this, I'm that, what's wrong with me? I need to fix this. And I think sometimes when we understand why and the roots of it, we're like, oh, this actually makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm actually really smart, and my little brain figured out a really great way to cope. And get my needs met. And now I need to figure out how to change it. But nothing was wrong with me. Actually, my brain was working just fine.
I love that. I love the nothing was wrong with me, I think, so many times. And that's why I love the philosophy of your counseling program. We often feel broken, and we feel like everything has to be fixed. And for many of us, we go out and we're looking for every program, every book, every thing to just fix me. But we need to see it from a different angle. I like the word more, help me evolve and grow, help me which is my work as a coach, is to help you become clear as to the why behind it, and then just move from there, because I think knowledge is power, right? And we're both teachers and educators here. I think that's a beautiful thing. So Molly, can you walk us through, I know there's different kinds of boundaries that exist. What are just some that you feel would be the main ones that we should put into place to feel a little more successful in life when it comes to boundaries?
I think it can be helpful to, so I don't have I have a more experiential, deep kind of felt sense of boundaries, and we go from there. And that's what I teach people to do, is really tap inside and listen, and then set the boundaries from there. So this isn't going to be too detailed on an intellectual level, because I think that's what gets us, actually. I think we so many great things are found. Yes, exactly. And actually a lot of great things are found out there, right? So we attempt to approach boundaries from that direction. And I think that's what ends up tricking us, and why we just can't quite figure them out, because I think we have to get more into almost that, almost the animal body, almost the
here.
Yes,
Connect to ourselves, our emotions, our body.
Yes, they're being communicated with us all the time. We just didn't know that's what they were, or that it was okay to listen. Our brain's like, it's not okay to listen to that. Please the people. So I think that, but for an intellectual way of seeing it, for a cognitive way of understanding it, I tend to think of, I think I even might have said this before, external and internal, that there are the boundaries that can be seen, quite visible. You can feel them, you can manipulate them with your hands, you can move them, you can, that would, an example of that would be like, do you know what we do at work? Like, I am going to set a boundary. I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to do this thing. I'm gonna, this is my line, and anyone can see it. And anybody can look on and say, oh, she has a boundary there. Internally, there's a whole bunch of boundaries happening in here that can't be seen. You can't find them, but they're very, very, very important. Those are my feelings versus your feelings, my thoughts versus your thoughts. So when I present boundaries, I like to differentiate them that way. But in actual practice, I don't know if there's really that much of a difference in actual life.
Okay. Right. When it comes to your feelings and my feelings, and seeing each other as two separate individuals as opposed to enmeshed people, can we talk a little bit and shift about codependency? Because I think that's something that perhaps some people are not aware of, the fact that they are in a codependent friendship, marriage, relationship, with family members, whatever it is. And, how can we identify if we're in one?
Side note, your questions are so good.
Thank you so much.
So good. Each one, I'm like, I could talk for hours about this.
I know we could.
So I view codependency. So I'm gonna use my hands here for a second. I'll try to speak it too for anybody who's listening. It's almost like with our hands, I've got me and I've got you. You exist as an independent, autonomous being. I exist as an independent, autonomous being, but we are in a connected relationship. So it's like our hands are touching, but when we are codependent, it's like the fingers
lock into each other.
And you can't really tell who starts, who stops. Where do I start and where do you stop? I do not know. And so when we get codependent, actually our boundaries, we end up crossing each other's boundaries quite a bit. And in fact, we can even feel like our boundaries are being violated when we're the ones violating. We are so, it's very hard on compassionate people because we are usually the victims. But when we start learning about deep boundaries, we actually realize one of the toughest things for a lot of people, and I get it because I've done it, is realizing, oh, that was me crossing that line. That was not my business. That was not my load to pick up. That was not my thing to help. And you didn't even ask me to help you. And here I am helping.
And here I am carrying your load.
Yes, exactly. So I think I
can relate to that.
It's a matter. We want to have more interdependent relationships where we can enjoy connection, but it is always chosen and it is always done with respect. Codependency is unintentionally very disrespectful. Since we don't know where we start and stop, we really can't respect the being of the other because we think they're them or they're us and we're them. And so we end up with without the intention to do so, we end up being very disrespectful towards ourselves and the other person. It's very counterintuitive. It's not how we usually think.
Yeah. It's almost like we're not honoring ourselves, right? And we're in a codependent relationship because we're not paying attention to any of our needs or our emotions or anything. It's always just like you said, enmeshed with the other person.
We didn't know we could. Yeah, we didn't know. I find it's that we didn't know we were allowed. We don't know, back to that childhood thing.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm allowed to have needs. And if I did have needs, I'm allowed to say so. And I'm allowed to be responsible for meeting those needs. What? And on a surface level, I think we'd all be like, well, of course, duh. But on a deep fundamental level, no, I'm not. no. It's so, and I love that you use the word honor. I use that word a lot because I think that's actually the heart of boundaries, is to honor self, to honor the other. That's being boundaried to me.
Yeah. So does it go back to, I hate going back to childhood, but does it go back to childhood if our feelings, our thoughts, our emotions and things were not validated? And so we felt we had to go like the extra step to be able to get that from the parent or parental figure.
Yeah, or just the grown-ups, the school, the everything. We just, you learn to be good. You jump through these hoops. I have definitely met some people. I used to think it's all trauma. It's all trauma. It's all unintentional trauma. This is it. I have met and worked with people who had delicious, glorious, wonderful childhoods and still engaged in codependent behaviors and didn't know where they started and stopped. So I've changed up my understanding of, or expanded my understanding of it. And I think that many times there's a lowercase trauma or an uppercase, or both traumas in our childhood, and just that lack of validation and lack of emotional help that causes this. But I think that as a broader culture, since we don't really understand where we start and stop, where the lines are on in a big way, or what emotional wellness is, what emotional validation is, how to have a healthy relationship with our emotions, I kind of think it's pretty easy for anybody who just comes wired with a compassionate heart to fall into this. And you can have a really great childhood and still struggle with it.
That's good to know. So I think it also goes by, as I'm hearing you, I'm thinking, it's that really understanding ourselves first and foremost, that self-love, that self-acceptance is so important in working towards becoming more boundaried in life. Yeah.
You nailed it. Yeah. So many people, when I start working with people, they're like, hey, this is actually all self-discovery. Hey.
Well,
you can't get that. That's where the boundaries are.
Peeling back those layers little by little. I love it.
If I know go ahead.
No, go ahead.
If I know who I am on a deep level, I come naturally boundaried. So when I know who I am on a deep level, I know where my lines are. And so from there, the surface level boundaries are much, much easier to find. I might like, oh, I think there's a boundary here. What is it? I can drop in. I can find, oh, it's right there. Then I can go back up to the surface and set the boundary.
I love that. If I had a Twitter account, that would be a tweet. That would be a really great tweet right here.
I want you to do that for me, please, because I can never condense anything into a few lines.
That was great. I love it. In your IG account, there was a particular post that I like. It's Boundary Bootcamp, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. You talked about boundary red flags when it comes to relationships, and this kind of goes with the codependent. Can you share like what would be some examples of boundary red flags in a relationship?
Totally. And I actually, I put a whole week into this in the thing because it's kind of a big deal. Because we think of red flags as behaviors. Like, oh, this is this behavior. And they are, but they aren't. The reason they're a red flag, excuse me, is because the flag is over a behavior that we want to, it's nice to imagine it sinking all the way down to a deep character problem. We got a big boundary problem way down in the deep, and you will be seeing this problem pop up again and again. That's what the red flag is. It's a very different way of conceptualizing red flags. So for example, one big one might be entitlement. So you might see that behavior on the surface show up. Maybe somebody's dating somebody and they just started and it's all really nice and woo,
honeymoon
and 5, 4, 3, 2. No. So maybe say that person like suddenly starts getting really upset if you don't text me back right away. You have to text me back right away. What were you doing that you didn't text me back right away? Just making up an example off the top of my head.
No, that is a good example.
Good. So, but on a deep level, what is that saying? Because it's so disrespecting the other person's time, energy. I mean, there's like a million reasons why one would not text somebody back right away. Like anything.
Especially maybe during even work hours. You're busy at work.
Yes, the sound is off. I don't want to talk yet. None of which can have anything to do with anything, but the person who wants that text back right away. Now, again, maybe they have some trauma behind it. Maybe they often do. They often feel like they have a very good reason. Like maybe they're having images of cheating in their head, or, they have their own abandonment needs or whatever. And yet that behavior, so there's grace for that. There's compassion for the hurts that maybe caused
that caused it.
So what? The behavior's still not so great. By the way, when we become boundaried, it's so cool because we can start having compassion for it and also say, so what? That's still not cool, which is so nice.
I love that.
They didn't mean to, they had a wound. I'll do it to, and we end up violating our own boundaries. So that entitlement, that I'm entitled to your time and your energy, if I'm in a relationship with you, that is a red flag, because on a deep level, that's saying, I don't know where I start and where I stop. And so when in doubt, I'm going to usurp your space. When in doubt, I'm going to come into your space and think I own that too.
Right.
And that is going to show up in 200,000 other ways over the course of the years, if you want to keep going with that.
So how does someone address it? In that part,
by the way, they can heal if they choose to. The person who's, I'm not saying they're broken and I'm not saying it's hopeless, but unless they do, that's going to keep showing up. Right. And how do we as compassionate people address it? I think as we become boundaried, what does it feel like when this person demands that I text them back? And when we kind of drop into ourselves, we'll notice some anxiety, a feeling of pressure, weariness. It doesn't feel good. We might have a part of us that really wants to help and wants to help them feel better, but the rest of us doesn't feel so hot about that. So we drop in, like our body's telling us,
100%, yeah.
But we usually don't drop in. We're like, I couldn't text you because I was at work, and please respect me. And we end up getting in this surface level war or conflict, or we just give in. But our being was telling us the whole time, that doesn't feel good and that's not okay.
I'm so glad you said that, because I feel like in the last maybe year and a half is where I've truly learned to feel and connect to my body, as opposed to everything being so analytical and so logistic. I'm a planner by nature, and I like to. So everything comes from here, but I've really learned to listen and to trust my intuition, to go with that. And I love that you're saying that, because so many of us live, for those of you that are listening and not watching on YouTube, I'm motioning to just my head. This is where we live, in just our head, instead of dropping into our body, because the body understands. Like you said, those feelings of anxiety, the feeling of maybe a tightening in your throat or tightening in your chest, or your gut might feel a little off, right? You get that little feeling.
Totally.
Trust it.
Yes.
Trust it and understand. I love that message. Thank you for that.
And we're so taught not to, we're just taught, now we're taught to live in our heads, and it's very counterintuitive. We can't trust our body, is what we're sort of taught. Like, don't trust that. Oh, your feelings are going to lead you wrong. And how interesting it is, just as you said, there's so much wisdom in here. Mm-hmm. We've been spending all of these years ignoring it because we thought it was bad.
Right. So it goes back to self-love, self-acceptance, our connection to ourselves, that we understand who we are and trust ourselves. If not, there's all this doubt, and the doubt and all that confusion, lack of clarity, is what makes you go and text back and say, oh, please, I'm sorry. It's 20 minutes I passed and I couldn't text you. Yep. So true. One quick question of something that just came up right now. Are boundaries harder for women than men?
I thought so too. And I don't. I don't. I do. I think we have different challenges. Okay. I thought for sure this was a woman's thing. I learned as a therapist, no, it's a compassionate hearted person thing. Okay. Now, my program's only for women because I do think that we have some unique challenges as women. So on that level, yes, very much so. As women in a culture, and I don't know if this is really true for everybody who's younger. I think there's some changes. But I'll tell you what, for many of us, we were acculturated, right, to who's supposed to be the helper in the relationship, who's supposed to be the giver, who's supposed to be the one who meets all the emotional needs, who's supposed to tend, who's supposed to carry the emotional energy of the relationship and the home and the everything, it's not the man. And so if you grow up at all and then bring into that if you have any religious background that also says there's hierarchy in relationships and women are to be submissive or anything like that, bring
right.
that, add that. Okay, now it's a higher power saying it too, by the way. You also not have boundaries in your home, in your culture, but also your higher power says. And that's nothing against religion, and lots of religion doesn't say that.
Of course not.
This makes for this poor little girl growing up is kind of like, okay, when in doubt, and I hear this all the time, when in doubt, my needs don't need to be met. When in doubt, my wants are irrelevant. So if anyone else wants anything, they get it first and I get it last.
Yeah. And I feel that leads women, especially, again, I think we both work with women especially with very loose boundaries, end up in burnout.
Oh man, right.
Because of the lack of self-care and all of that. And just exactly what you mentioned, no, everybody first. And then if there's anything left over for me, then I'll take the break or I'll take the leftovers or whatnot, because we were maybe
less.
Or even paid less. Yes. Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's expected that we'll do more, and it's not appreciated as much because, yeah, well, you're a woman. That's what you do. So we burn out for less money. At least we burn out for this, for more money.
For more money.
I mean, just we are rewarded and told we're good if we do those things. We get pats, we get A's, we get like, oh, I'm so appreciative of you. It's a really hard trap to break out of, because you feel, again, back to that guilt thing, you feel like you're doing something so wrong if you decide to start questioning these things and trying to find a different way to live. But as you know, I bet, so you probably see this a lot, this whole people-pleasing, codependency, no boundaries thing, it can last, and you can actually do pretty well with it to a point. And every once in a while, somebody in their 20s notices it. But boy, by those 30s, by the 40s, by the 50s, by the 60s and 70s, done. Somewhere there is a point that's like, okay, I don't even know any other way, and I feel guilty for even thinking about it, but I'm not doing this anymore. I can't do this anymore. It doesn't work.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing when you finally realize that. It's just such a freedom to say,
yes.
Yep, and be okay with it and not have all the other stuff that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
The feelings come over you. So Molly, all guests answer this final question here on A Cup of Clarity, and that is, what has been a moment of clarity in your life, and what did it teach you?
The thing that comes to mind, probably because of the context we're talking about, because there's been so many different moments of clarity that I've been so appreciative, but there was this point in my 20s, as I was coming into my breaking, for lack of a better word. It's not that people are broken, but just that this belief system and this way of doing things just started cracking, where it was in my head, but it felt so real, where I saw my inner child. I didn't even believe in inner child at that time. I thought that was just like, whatever. And I saw my own inner child just wasting away at my feet on a parched ground, hanging on to life, wishing I would pick her up.
Oh.
And it just, something clicked for me, and I realized, because I just was, anything out there I would give, do, be, feel, and there was no taking care of Molly on any level. And to see that like that in me, I picked her up, just weeping and apologizing, and kind of in that, like, I have no idea what to do with you, but I'm so sorry. I can at least give you something. And there was a beautiful journey that began.
Amazing. What an amazing story. It's almost like you picked her up and said, it's okay, you're safe here with me. Right? I got you now.
Yeah, it was, I wish it was like that. It was more of a, oh gosh, I did this to you. I don't know I don't know how not to do this to you, but I'm going to figure it out.
Oh.
And it would take some time to figure it out, but holy, it's not even the same life.
Well, thank goodness, because here you are
now,
doing so many wonderful things. But Before we move on to the end, and I always like to do a little segment called Recommended Segment. And I'm going to just shoot out 3 different categories to you, and you tell me what you recommend in each one. And the first one is a book. Is there a book you feel everyone should kind of read?
There's a time I just have all these books, and in the last couple of years, I don't know, I've had a need for sort of silence and space, and I haven't been just gulping down books. So I would actually say a sketchbook or a journal and a really good gel pen. Right now, I'm really into the Sharpie ones because they don't bleed all over. But
are you left-handed by chance?
No, I'm right-handed. Okay. But I'm just
because I'm left-handed and everything.
Yeah, that line on your left hand. No, I somehow had a bunch of left-handed kids though. But I'd say, kind of in keeping with even what we're talking about, to be able to drop in and hear, what am I feeling inside of me? What's going on inside of me? And allowing it to come out on the paper, even if you feel like it's bad or wrong or not allowed. Maybe it could just be on the paper though. On the paper if you don't want it. But just at least let it out a little.
Yes, I agree with that. Just sometimes putting it there. And I usually tell my clients, just leave it for a minute, come back the next day and reread it and see it now with a new set of eyes on paper and see how that feels for you or how that resonates. So how about a product on anything that you like?
I'm really into these cups by Simple Modern.
Okay.
My coffee cups. I don't know.
Do they keep everything really hot? Is that what you like about them?
This lives by me
all day.
Yep, exactly. And a little sip.
So it's called Simply Modern?
Simple Modern.
Simple Modern. Okay.
This is just one of them. I just ended up buying like 3 or 4 more because they're so great and all the lids match for whatever sizes, which is really cool.
I know, it's like the simple little things in life, right? That sometimes make us happy. It doesn't have to be anything big. It's just a great thing to put your coffee in and keep it hot all day. And my last recommended is a location. What's a place, even within Alaska, that someone might want to go and enjoy visiting?
This is a beautiful place in the summer, but I think everybody in the entire world comes here in the summer, so it might not be so beautiful to be. My actual favorite place is Hawaii. Each island has its own. My ideal moment, my inner happy place is just kind of coming out of the water from a good snorkel. My hair's anyways, but it's even worse with a snorkel mask. Just needing to get a quick snack and then hop back in and see some more fish. I love, the attitude, the energy there it matches that. For me, this idea of being beautifully boundaried is honoring self, honoring others. And Hawaii's ethos has this very, very gorgeous, deep sense of respect for self and others in its culture. And I wonder sometimes, is that why I love this place so much? Or is it just
it's beautiful too? But I'm sure that the respect comes with for nature as well.
Yes.
I would think, because
a very beautiful way of doing peopling. I mean, culture is just how we do people.
Yeah.
Just, I have so much respect and appreciation for it.
Well, thank you for those. Tell us, Molly, how can someone work with you? And tell us a little bit about your Boundary Bootcamp.
Oh, I'd love to. So one way to work with me just for free is every single morning I draw a little cartoon and write up a little thing just to do good in the world. And so that can be found on my Instagram or my Facebook. But with a small group of women each month, generally very compassionately hearted women, we go on kind of an 8-week intensive where we do exactly what we've been talking about here. Not surface level boundary stuff. We go very, very deep in all sorts of gorgeous ways, very experiential, very hands-on. A whole lot of people who end up taking the course just experience such exquisite changes. Family, friends start saying, "What's different about you? You're glowing." Wow. I report back like, "I just set a bunch of boundaries. I just set this boundary over here and I didn't mean to. I didn't try. It just happened. What the heck?" where when we find our boundaries here, the rest comes out naturally. And so that, if somebody wanted to explore that, there's a free intro class where I kind of explain about my approach to boundaries and how it can work for you and what it looks like, and just give some free tips too. And that's at boundaried.com.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And thank you for offering that someone can just at least get a little bit of information to get themselves started. And then if interested, they can join your 8-week program.
Yeah.
It has been, golly, such a pleasure. I feel like we could probably go on for another 45 minutes and go deeper into some more topics. But I thank you for your time, for being here and really sharing just this amazing wisdom on boundaries and the reasons why and what we can do to sort of start setting them in our lives. Mm-hmm. So for you, the listener, thank you for joining Molly and I on this episode. I hope it sparked the insight within. To learn more about Molly and her programs, as you heard her say, you can check out her website at boundaried.com, or you can find her over on Instagram at Boundaried Bootcamp. Mm-hmm. If you're a Facebook user, you can find her over at Wild Goose Counseling, and check it out because she's got such great information. Until next time, I send you love and light. May your cup be full and overflowing.
Thank you so much